Warning: the following podcast is intended for mature audiences and does contain spoilers. If you are sensitive to anything in particular, I recommend looking up this film on doesthedogdie.com. It is a user-submitted database that is filled with all sorts of different trigger warnings and content warnings for people who may be sensitive to those things. Check it out and take care of yourself. Welcome back to We Creeps, the podcast where you can get all of your spooky without any of the scares. I am your host, Evan Exhumed, and every week I provide an in-depth summary, review, and trivia for the latest horror releases, classics, and some weird ones you probably never heard of. This week I will be covering the awesome Christmas horror film, It's a Wonderful Knife, which was directed by Tyler McIntyre, starring Jane Widdop, Jess McLeod, Joel McHale, Catherine Isabel, William B. Davis, and Justin Long. A Scream King, of course. This film really got me into the holiday spirit. I really like Christmas-related horror movies or any holiday-related horror movies. I'm just generally a big fan of them, so with all that said, let's go ahead and get started on the summary portion of the podcast. The film opens up with a pretty funny Justin Long playing the character Henry Waters. He's sort of like a big rich guy who is trying to create this like epic mall or something, and he has like veneers or fake teeth in his mouth to make him look kind of corny, which is really hilarious. And they're celebrating Christmas at the location which is known as Angel Falls. It's very wintry and Christmassy. And we meet the main character, who is Winnie Carruthers, and her father, David, and her mother, Judy. It looks like Winnie's father, David, works for Henry Waters, and they are trying to convince this old guy, Roger Evans, to basically allow them to finish making this mega mall thing. And so David goes with Henry to try to convince him. Winnie seems pretty disappointed at him for doing that. So we see David and Henry try to convince Roger Evans to sign over the property. And then we're introduced to Winnie's friend, who is also the granddaughter of Roger Evans. She's going to die, so I'm not going to go too deep into her character because she just dies very quickly. But so Roger Evans is just like, no, I'm not going to sign over this stuff. David, I think you're a great guy, but Henry, you fucking suck and your teeth are dumb. Also, just a fun fact, like pretty much everybody in this movie is gay. Like a good chunk, like 70% of the characters in this are gay, which was kind of intentional from what I understand. I'll talk more about it in the trivia portion, but yeah. So Winnie is bisexual and her brother, Jimmy, is gay. We also meet her aunt, Gail, who is a lesbian. And Winnie goes off with her friend Kara to go to a Christmas party. Meanwhile, we see Roger Evans just chilling at his home. And then the psychotic killer, I don't even know its name. We'll just call it the killer for now. Basically, it looks like a reverse ghost face that's just in all white, has a knife, and the face is just blank and white with kind of some eye sockets. Super creepy. But it murders the fuck out of him. So goodbye, Mr. Evans. We then join the teens or college age kids or whatever. Back at the party, we learn that the main character has a boyfriend named Robbie. She's talking to her friend Darla. There's a lot of names here. I'll just refer to them, who they are, as the characters, because I'm not going to even remember them myself. But yes, so Robbie is her boyfriend and Darla is her homie. There's also this other girl that they call Weirdo, who for some reason they don't want people talking to her, but she's pretty cute and she's for sure the love interest for the main character. Her actual name is Bernie, so she's an important character for sure. So Winnie's brother splits up, goes to make out with some guy. His boyfriend gets murdered. Then Kara goes to make out with some guy and she gets murdered brutally in front of Winnie, which is pretty upsetting. It's pretty brutal, and Winnie, our main character, is notably upset by this. So the killer ends up going after Winnie, and just as she's about to get killed, her brother knocks him over, and then Winnie uses like Christmas lights or something to shatter on his head, and it electrocutes him to death, killing him. And they reveal that the serial killer is Henry Waters. He was going around killing people, likely to help him get his land or whatever, so he could make a mega mall, which is comically evil. But yep, they kill the killer pretty quickly, and then we get the title screen. It's a Wonderful Knife. We then see that a year has passed, and Winnie is pretty depressed, understandably so. The family seems to have kind of gotten over it. They're doing cute little Carruthers real estate commercials and things like that. And yeah, it's just a little odd because it was a pretty big tragedy. We see that Winnie has also not gotten into the college program that she was applying to. Part of that is because her camera broke, unfortunately. So yeah, it's a little bit of trauma that caused her life to kind of come apart. As Winnie goes with her family to do some Christmas stuff, we encounter Buck Waters, which was Henry's brother, and he's quite mad that Winnie killed his brother, despite his brother being like a fucking psychopath. So he makes some kind of threats or something, and we just kind of move along with the story. We then jump to opening Christmas presents, and her parents get her like a pink workout jumpsuit. They're like a rich family, so I don't know why they got her like the absolute shittiest gift ever. But yeah, so they give her a workout gear and are like, oh, maybe you should, start working out again. That'll make you feel happy and be less depressed. And, she's understandably pretty upset. In contrast, they end up getting her brother Jimmy a new fucking truck. So, I mean, that's just, again, they are rich and they get her a tracksuit and the brother a fucking 2023 truck. Like, these parents are dicks. I mean, I don't know. This is kind of shitty. So, understandably very upset, our main character goes to a party that's hosted by her boyfriend Robbie or something. So she goes to the party looking for him and she encounters Bernie, her love interest. Yes, I'm just going to go ahead and say it because it's super obvious to everyone in the room. So Bernie says, oh, your boyfriend, I think, is outside or something. And then Winnie doesn't believe her and ends up going upstairs to his room. And she finds that he is, in fact, cheating on her with her friend Darla. I mean, they are just smooching. So Winnie tells them off, gets very angry. Bernie tries to console her, but she's like, I don't need your help, Bernie. And that makes Bernie sad. And she gets the fuck out of there. She then goes to stand on like a pier or something. And she looks at the Aurora Borealis and says, it would have been better if I was just never born. I hate my life. And the Aurora Borealis does some magic shit and flashes at her, and then suddenly it's gone. And she has now been transported into a world where she was never born. She then walks up to a random man and says, hey, did you just see that random shit with the Aurora Borealis? And he has a knife in his fucking head. And the Christmas killer is back and chases her. And we see her run by a real estate sign that has Henry Waters' face on it. He is alive once again. She then quickly runs to a cop car and breaks the window and grabs the radio calling for help. Thankfully, a sheriff is there, and it's actually Buck, the guy who threatened her, who was Henry's brother. And apparently he's the sheriff now. We also learned that the killer's name is the Angel. We learned that the old sheriff was actually killed a year ago by the Angel Killer. Henry Waters conveniently shows up and tries to comfort her, but Winnie is not really buying it. And she's like, yeah, he was about your height, Mayor. And the sheriff is just like, that's interesting. And so she kind of fucks off because she realizes that she's talking to the killer and she goes to try to make sense of things. She ends up walking back to her house and she just enters because I guess they just leave the door open. And her mother is there drunk, thinking that she's like an Uber Eats driver. Her aunt Cara and her father David show up and are like, who the fuck are you? And she's like, where's Jimmy? And they're like, are you serious? What the fuck, you piece of shit? Jimmy died a year ago thanks to the Angel Killer. And they're just like, get the fuck out of our house, all right? I know we left the door, wide open for anyone to walk in, but we're really upset that you just walked into an unlocked house. So get out of here and don't talk about our dead son. In good fashion, she runs throughout the town to see that things are not going super well since that, whole serial killer thing has been happening. And Henry Waters is actually running for mayor. So he's trying to get as much control of the city or town or village or whatever it is as much as he can. And at this point, he basically owns the entire town. I mean, he's gotten his property. There's stuff about him everywhere. He's won. She ends up going to Robbie's party, and that's where she runs into Bernie, who is excited to see her but does not know her. She sees that her old boyfriend, Robbie, is dating Darla. They've been together for 3 years instead of just a year. And yeah, the whole town just seems really fucked. The whole party and the house just is pretty much vandalized. And a lot of the characters that were in the background are now addicted to drugs because, they could die at any minute by the hands of this crazy serial killer. So they're just like, whatever, might as well get fucked up. Winnie ends up leaving the party and she starts to kind of have a panic attack and runs off a little bit. And the angel killer comes and murders a few other people. So Winnie ends up snagging Bernie at the party and says, hey, I know who the killer is. Let's go figure this out because you're totally my love interest and I'm just going to pick you out of all people to help me. They go back to Bernie's house and we see that she has kind of a traumatic backstory. Her father is not present and her mother is just dating a bunch of shitty guys. And so they go up to her room and we see that Bernie has been trying to track down the angel killer and that she was going to go to fashion school. When he says something like, oh, I was going to go to fashion school. And Bernie's like, oh, maybe we'll go together. And it's just like, what's going on here, Bernie? You don't know this woman. Are you just that thirsty for this strange blonde woman? I mean, she's very cute. But again, it's just so obvious that you're the love interest. It's painful, but I'm still rooting for you. I don't care. Winnie then explains the entire situation to Bernie, and she initially doubts her. As Bernie starts to distrust her and points a knife at her to protect herself, the angel killer just breaks through her window and tries to kill them both. So it's a very convenient way for them to kind of assure trust in each other. Almost getting murdered together is a good way to bond very quickly. As they run away, we see the Aurora Borealis is back and they go to like a movie theater where Bernie works. And she's like, well, don't worry, you'll be safe in here because I work here and nobody's going to come into this place. They end up watching It's a Wonderful Life on the screen. Bernie asks her some questions and they have a little bit of chemistry there. And they end up holding hands and Winnie cuddles on her and Bernie gives a little happy smile. So I was right. Romance is happening. A few hours later, when he wakes up and we see that Bernie has compiled a bunch of information on the Aurora Borealis, and she has determined that based on folklore, that it is the spirit of a person who was violently murdered. And so her assumption is that because she violently murdered Henry Waters, that his evil spirit sent her to a place where she does not exist. So that's, I guess, just the explanation that she figured out. And apparently the Aurora is fading, so their goal is to kill Henry Waters again, and that'll somehow send her back. But if it was Henry who sent her in the first place, killing him again, would that send her back? Is the spirit not sure where it's sending people? Is it just sending people anywhere? It doesn't really make sense. They then decide to try and recruit her father, David, who is closest to Henry Waters because he works with him. And they see if he'll help them stop him. The father ends up just shutting the door on her, and then her Aunt Cara comes to the door, and she's like, look, you're my Aunt Cara, that's actually my dad. I'm in this weird whole situation, and Aunt Cara is just like, well, tell me something that you can't Google. And she tells her an embarrassing story, and she's like, okay, that's good enough for me, you can come in. And we see a little bit more about how her life's a bit different. Her mom is like addicted to drugs and like sleeps with a bunch of different dudes while still being married to her father. So that kind of sucks. So she ends up going to talk to her dad. They have kind of a sad conversation about how Jimmy died and how it made him sad and, how appreciating life is important. And so she tries to tell him that Henry Waters is the one who killed her brother. And he gets really angry about that and is like, look, Henry Waters is my fucking best friend. He paid for my son's funeral. He's helped this family. Get the fuck out of my house, you crazy woman, you. Just as Winnie and Bernie are about to leave the house, suddenly her mother is killed by the angel killer. And so the aunt, Bernie, and Winnie all run away from him. They end up pushing him down the stairs and he passes out. And as they're sneaking out, Winnie picks up his knife and is about to kill him, but she wants to look him in the face. And we see plot twist. It's actually her father who is the angel killer in this universe. Maybe one of many, I don't know. But he is one of these angel killers. So he wakes up and they quickly flee back to the movie theater to sort of recuperate. So the explanation apparently is that Henry Waters was the first killer, and then now her father is the second killer being manipulated by Henry Waters for some reason. You would think that his son dying at the hands of Henry Waters and then him being like, hey, can you start killing other people to take over the rest of the businesses would probably upset her father. But I don't know. Maybe they'll explain this, but so far it's not making too much sense. So yeah, they're just like, well, I guess we just have to kill your dad and then that should fix everything. And the Aurora Borealis will send you back to your hometown and fix everything. So let's just lure him here and do that. It's actually pretty hilarious, though, because they put on the movie theater sign, Merry Christmas, David, we are inside. So that's pretty fucking funny. As they're waiting, Darla and Robbie end up coming, and they were there to just like bone or something. It's like their tradition. And so then David comes dressed as a killer, murders both of them. He also kills her Aunt Cara. That's really sad, but they end up winning and stabbing him in the chest, and he is dead. So they win, or so they think. They then go to the little pier, Winnie and Bernie, and she tries to wish herself back, but the Aurora Borealis does nothing, which was pretty obvious because obviously they still had to kill Henry Waters. So they have a little bit of a romantic moment, admit that they like each other. No kisses yet. But they decide, yeah, we probably should go fucking kill Henry Waters, the person who started this. So they go to Henry Waters' little Christmas gathering where he does like a speech or something. And everyone has like really weird green eyes, like they're being hypnotized. And we see his brother, Buck, was going to transfer to another city or something. And this makes Henry really mad. So he stabs him and then puts him in the angel outfit and then rises him on top of the tree as like a tree topper. And everyone in the crowd just seems to be completely fine with this. So they get brought up on stage and he like tells them off a bit. He then explains that her father like saw his power or something, and that's why he ended up working for him. And I'm just going to go ahead and guess because they literally never fucking explain this. But I'm going to assume that Henry Waters' spirit like mixed with the Aurora Borealis and then used magic to send her to this alternate universe where he didn't die. And he himself sent his spirit to this universe too. And he uses the Aurora Borealis spirit magic to like hypnotize everyone because they all have green eyes, like they're hypnotized, and they're just like letting him kill people. And like that's like literally the only explanation I can fucking think of, and none of that is super intuitive. So good luck. I that's the best I could do. I've watched this movie twice now and I still don't fucking understand. But yeah, so Winnie and Bernie just get really mad and just start beating the shit out of him. Nobody seems to help him while they're just beating his ass, which is pretty hilarious. But they throw him off stage as a result. And suddenly all the people around him start like grabbing at him and like pulling at him like they're going to kill him. I don't know why. Maybe it broke the spell. Maybe they're angry. They still seem under the spell, but I don't really know. So he actually survives that and gets back up on stage and tries to kill them or strangle them. And then Bernie stabs the fuck out of him, killing him. And then everybody's eyes goes back to normal. And then the Aurora Borealis comes back with like a vengeance, super bright. And it seems like she's going to be sent back now. Then just before she's about to leave, they make out. It's beautiful. It's very gay. I love it. Can't wait to see more. Good job. Winnie then wakes up back in her own time where everything has been fixed. All of her friends and stuff still got murdered a year ago, but she is back in her own timeline where she can appreciate life again and just pretend that she does not have trauma that is from like basically a year ago. She jumps for joy, runs around, runs downstairs, hugs her family, is super happy. Her parents end up giving her her other Christmas gift, which is a brand new camera, which is still not as good as a fucking 2023 brand new truck, but I digress. It's still a pretty nice gesture. Don't know why they waited a year to replace her camera, considering they're rich as fuck, but, whatever. It's a Christmas movie. We don't need to think about it that much. So yeah, Winnie hugs all of her family, everybody has a sweet moment, and then she realizes, oh shit, my girlfriend Bernie still exists. I need to go talk to her and see if she remembers me. So she runs all the way to her house. She runs into her ex-boyfriend and his new girlfriend, Robbie. She looks at them and goes, you guys are a great couple. Bye. I'm going to go hang out with my cool, sexy girlfriend. And so she goes all the way to Bernie's house. She opens the door. Bernie doesn't recognize her and then just goes, just kidding. I do. Haha. I remember everything. It's a Christmas miracle. They hug. Everything seems great. They're going to watch Christmas movies and have French toast and breakfast. And then the movie ends. Now, with the summary portion out of the way, let's go ahead and move on to the review portion.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
So, despite some of my complaints in the summary portion, I still really liked this movie. I think the best way to compare it and be okay with a lot of the plot holes that are in it is to compare it to like a Hallmark or Lifetime Christmas movie. There's not much for you to really dig deep into. It's not a very deep movie, but it's fun. There's a lot of murder. It's Christmassy. It's something you can watch with friends and family. And that's about all it really needs to be. I spoke to a friend about this, and one of the things he said was that this movie could have just really used an additional 5 minutes of exposition. Just tell us what's happening. And I agree with that completely. I think that would have really patched up most of the holes in the movie, and it would have just made it overall better. But I think this is really fun. I think it's something that I would watch again. And I mean, I did watch it twice, and I am doing an episode on it. So I liked it enough for sure to talk about it and make it my first actual Christmas episode on Christmas. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a 3.5 out of 5. Very fun movie, has rewatchability, and you should definitely check it out. With the review portion out of the way, let's go ahead and move on to Trick or Trivia.
What is it you want, Barry? What do you want? You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Trick or Trivia number 1. The white costume worn by the Angel Killer is actually an homage to the original costume that was meant to be worn by Ghostface, the main killer in the Scream franchise. One of the reasons they didn't go with white was because white hooded figures have not really been historically very popular and have some pretty bad associations. So I think I mentioned that in the Scream episode. So the character Aunt Gail is named Gail Prescott, which is paying homage to the Scream characters Sidney Prescott and Gail Weathers. Trivia number 3. This is writer Michael Kennedy's second major film. And he said because he had more insight into the production, the directing, and the writing, he was like, I'm going to make like the gayest slasher of all time. And not surprising because he himself is a gay man. But yeah, he wanted the film to have as many queer characters as possible. And he did a really great job of doing that. Join us again next season for more Trick or Trivia. Thanks so much for listening to this Christmas episode of We Creeps. If you're looking for more ways to interact or get more content from We Creeps, you can check out my TikTok and my Instagram. I post a lot more there. TikTok specifically, I do a lot of little horror memes and people seem to like them. So if you're from TikTok, thanks for coming. If you're from Instagram, thanks for coming. If you're looking for more ways to support the show, you can sign up for my Patreon. You get episodes a day early, as well as you just support me in continuing to make this stuff, and it allows other people and yourself to continue to get the insight on what movies are happening and the plots that happen within them. And you don't have to have nightmares, so that's pretty nice. You can also buy some merch from TeePublic. We've got some Stay Spooky Out There t-shirts as well as the We Creeps logo. Check it out, grab a t-shirt, maybe return something you didn't really like that you got and use that money to buy some We Creeps merch. I'm not telling you how to live your life, but that's what I would do. Anyway, you can find all of that on WeCreeps.com. Just a heads up for next week, it will not be a traditional episode. I will be, in fact, recording my top 10 horror for 2023. So check that out. That will be the last episode of the season. And after that, I'm going to take about a month off. If you're listening to this on Christmas, Merry Christmas. If not, I hope your Christmas was amazing. And I really hope that with all the gift giving and holiday cheer, that you did not forget to stay spooky out there.